with an open mind? Dhamma Talks by Sayadaw Jhaneyya. Dhamma Talk 2. Realization comes from right attention. Ditthi is the main enemy, the defiled mind. If one cannot abandon wrong view, one cannot abandon craving, greed and lust. This explains why humans are becoming increasingly greedy. Material progress has brought many problems and much suffering. The cause of no progress in Dharma practice is improper attention. Another important factor is neglecting the practice for various reasons. Only with right attention can one put effort into the practice and walk on the right path. Many people fall into superstition and rely on outside powers, even doubting the law of karma. This can be seen even among some Chinese Buddhists. For monks who are studying, recollection of death may cause them to lose interest in mere study. This is a good sign. Whether monk or layperson, one is then inclined toward practice rather than merely increasing defilements. In the past, a novice listening to the Devadutta Sutta, Divine Messengers Sutta, MN 130 Majjhima Nikaya, developed a strong sense of urgency, samvega, and became fearful. He requested permission from his teacher to practice first, and only after attaining the first stage of realization did he continue his studies. With improper attention to the nature of non-self, anatta, a yogi may relax effort and become indulgent, falling into a view of coarse materialism, believing that nothing exists beyond indulgence. In reality, anatta refers to the phenomena of cause and effect. Renunciation, nekkhamma parami, is the effort to make greed, anger and delusion diminish. It is also included within other perfections. For example, practicing dana must be directed toward nibbana, where lobha, dosa and moha are extinguished. Giving in this way produces the proper result, because it is free from defilements. It must be accompanied by the noble aspiration for nibbana alone. One important point in vipassana is that without noting and with only observing, one cannot attain the level of samadhi that is able to discern anicca. It is acceptable to observe after samadhi has been well developed, for example in Ubakin system. In that case, there is no need to note. However, there are different views. Without samadhi, saying that there is no need to note is wrong. Knowing the arising of dharmas is done through noting. Noting develops samadhi. I am concerned that if one follows the wrong approach, when insight into anicca becomes sharp, quick and mature, one may no longer be able to note it. When relying only on observing, the process may become slower and weaker, and one then needs to return to noting. Because of the method, things can go wrong. I myself have experienced this before. If one relies on observing with samatha samadhi, samadhi may gradually weaken, and insight into anicca may also weaken. This is one reason why forest monks who rely heavily on jhanas and contemplations sometimes experience a decline in samadhi, and need to re-establish it again. This is also seen in Ubakin system. Here, the Mahasi system is effective because it is based on vipassana samadhi. After samadhi has been attained by whichever method, if one continues noting in the Mahasi way, samadhi will not fall down. Mental noting without observing is also not correct. At times, when it is possible to note, one must note. When it is not possible, one should simply observe. If one understands what has happened to the khandhas, that becomes knowledge. Therefore, one should note and observe only what is known. In this way, knowledge develops more quickly. Noting prevents the mind from running away by regulating samadhi. In some situations one cannot note, so one has to observe instead, for example when talking with others. Why is it necessary to note objects? It is to remain with the present moment, and to know the changing nature of the present moment. For this reason we have to note. During the noting process, yogis discern anicca. At first yogis only know the arising of phenomena, and cannot immediately discern anicca. Later, when samadhi becomes strong, the discerning of anicca follows. One should not compare oneself with Mogok Sayadaw, because he possessed very sharp knowledge. According to Sutta, it was mentioned to discern anicca, its disenchantment, and its cessation. Mogok Sayadaw also taught in the same way but did not mention about mental noting. Here Sayadaw Jhaneyya emphasized the importance of noting before the discernment of anicca. Note, there are monks who interpret Mogok Sayadaw's way of practice differently, including teachers from the Mogok tradition. Many talks by Mogok Sayadaw never described the practice in detail from beginning to end. From the accounts of his close disciples, whether monks, lay practitioners, there is no mention of either a brief or detailed description of his practice methods. Only U Kiao Thane once referred to his practice under the Sayadaw's guidance, yet his account merely outlines key points, which appear in the Sayadaw's brief biography. This was a great loss for Buddhists. From the study of his Dharma talks and his two biographies, i.e., by U Kiao Thane and Sayadaw Ugosita, as well as from my own understanding, I hold a different view. In fact, U Kiao Thane is the best candidate to write a complete biography and account of Sayadaw's teaching. From my contemplation, Sayadaw was not a Sukha Vipassana yogi but rather a Samatha Vipassana yogi. There is evidence of this in some of his talks and biographies. Sayadaw possessed the skill of mind reading, and could predict certain future matters. In his daily activities, he did many things without using clocks, yet always knew the exact time. Near his final passing away, Sayadaw was receiving unseen or divine beings 4 times, namely on the 11th, 14th, 15th, and 16th of October 1962. On the 17th he passed away and entered eternal peace. To communicate with divine beings, jhanic power is required. Please read Ajahn Mun's biography by Ajahn Mahabua at forestdhamma.org/books/. If one truly discerns anicca, one may later encounter rapture, happiness, tranquility, light, and so on, i.e., the 10 insight corruptions. With continued noting, arising and vanishing occur instantaneously. When knowledge becomes sharper, one may no longer see the arising, and perceive only the vanishing. For example, when noting rising and falling, i.e. the breath passing through the abdomen, one may not see the beginning of the rising but only the end of the falling. During noting, the yogi has to note the prominent object. He has to give preference to noting the internal process of the khandha, when there are, as example, bodily pain, and external sound arising. He has to neglect the sound. After the pain has disappeared, and there is no prominent internal object, note the external one. If mental sign objects arise, note them as well. If they do not disappear, do not pay attention to them. Instead, contemplate an internal object, such as in and out breaths, or touching and knowing, i.e., sitting. If one becomes interested in them, i.e., external signs, they do not vanish. Worse than external objects are one's own imaginations.